He was once one of YouTube's most outspoken personalities. Loud, funny, unpredictable, and brutally honest about everything from football to everyday life. For years, Bryant Moreland, better known as EDP445, was the kind of creator who could go viral without even trying. His videos about the Philadelphia Eagles and his over-the-top reactions built a loyal audience of more than 2 million people. But behind the camera, there was a very different story about to unfold, one that would destroy everything he had built. Before the controversy, Bryant's rise seemed unstoppable. He represented the raw, unfiltered side of YouTube, a man who spoke his mind without caring about sponsors, trends, or political correctness. To many, he was comedy gold. Fans quoted his rants word for word, and his uploads could rack up hundreds of thousands of views overnight. But fame built on shock value often blurs the line between persona and reality. And in 2021, that blurred line came back to haunt him. In April of that year, a video began circulating online that would end his career in a single weekend. It wasn't a prank or a skit or another outrageous rant. It was footage from a private investigation, run not by law enforcement, but by a civilian group conducting online safety operations. The people behind it claimed that Bryant had been engaging in conversations online that crossed serious boundaries. According to their reports, they had been documenting his messages for weeks, collecting evidence of concerning behavior. Then they set up a meeting to confront him face to face. When the footage dropped, the internet exploded. The man who had built his brand on confidence and defiance suddenly looked cornered, nervous, and exposed. Millions of viewers watched as he was questioned on camera. Within hours, YouTube channels, news sites, and social media pages were flooded with clips dissecting every second of the encounter. Bryant didn't deny the conversations took place, but he insisted the situation had been misrepresented. The story spread faster than any official investigation ever could. As the footage went viral, law enforcement became aware of the situation. But because the operation was conducted by private citizens, not police officers, the case had major legal complications. Evidence gathered without proper procedure can't always be used in court. And without a formal criminal complaint, prosecutors had limited options to pursue. By the time reporters tried to reach him, Bryant's accounts were already gone. YouTube terminated his main channel, along with any backup pages he tried to create. In just a few days, one of YouTube's loudest voices went completely silent. The aftermath was brutal. Fans who once defended him turned away almost overnight. His name became shorthand for internet downfall, a warning to anyone who thought their online fame made them untouchable. Meanwhile, those who had been part of the investigation faced criticism of their own for their methods. Even though they had exposed something troubling, critics argued they blurred the lines between justice and vigilantism. The entire saga became a debate over whether public exposure could replace due process. For Bryant, the fallout never stopped. Attempts to return under new usernames were quickly banned. Social media platforms erased him one by one. He moved between states, giving occasional interviews where he claimed he'd been set up, insisting his actions had been misunderstood. But the damage was irreversible. Once the footage existed online, there was no undoing it. Every reappearance triggered new outrage, new reminders of what had happened in 2021. Despite never facing formal criminal charges, his reputation was beyond repair. The audience that had once laughed with him now viewed him as a cautionary tale, a man whose choices caught up with him in the age of permanent digital records. In one sense, he was never convicted of a crime. But in the court of public opinion, the verdict was absolute. His downfall became one of the most infamous collapses in YouTube history. Years later, Bryant remains largely out of the spotlight. The same internet that once made him famous continues to keep his story alive, replayed in documentaries, commentary videos, and reminders of how quickly influence can vanish. For many, his case represents a disturbing intersection between online fame, accountability, and the consequences of poor judgment. In the end, EDP-445 went from a viral icon to a symbol of self-destruction, not through a court sentence, but through the relentless exposure of the online world itself. Number 2. Austin Jones. Before everything fell apart, Austin Jones seemed like the picture of a YouTube success story. A clean-cut, soft-spoken musician from Chicago, he had a growing fan base, millions of views, and a reputation for being the kind of performer parents could trust their kids to watch. His acoustic covers of pop songs were upbeat, his image wholesome, and his connection with fans unusually personal. But that personal connection would soon reveal the darker side of online fame, and ultimately send him to prison. Austin began posting music videos in the early 2000s, blending pop-punk energy with a choir boy image. He covered artists like Justin Bieber and Fall Out Boy, bringing fans by the thousands into his orbit. By 2016, he had amassed over 500,000 subscribers, toured internationally, and collaborated with other YouTubers. To most of the world, he was just another young artist chasing his dream. But behind the public persona, investigators say he was using that fame in ways that violated the law. In 2017, authorities arrested Jones at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. Court filings later revealed he had been communicating with fans online in ways that crossed legal boundaries. According to reports, these communications showed a pattern of misconduct over time. Prosecutors later stated that multiple fans had been affected by his actions. For the fans who idolized him, the news was devastating. The boyish musician they had supported turned out to be under serious investigation. YouTube immediately demonetized and removed his channel. Concert promoters canceled upcoming shows, and his music was wiped from streaming services. Within days, Austin Jones had gone from a touring artist to a headline on every major news outlet in the country. During the investigation, evidence began to mount: screenshots, chat logs, and interviews with those affected who described being misled into believing they were helping their favorite artist with a project. In a statement to the court, prosecutors emphasized that Jones's fame gave him a kind of influence that made his actions especially harmful. It wasn't random. It was deliberate misuse of celebrity status. In February 2019, Jones pleaded guilty to serious charges related to his conduct. He admitted his actions, and by May of that year, the court handed down his sentence: 10 years in prison. The judge's message was clear. Online fame is not a shield from accountability. It doesn't matter how many subscribers or how positive your image is. The law applies the same way. At his sentencing, Jones expressed regret and claimed he wanted to seek therapy and rehabilitation. But for those affected and their families, the damage was lasting. The case also sent shockwaves through the YouTube music scene. Other creators began re-examining how easily fame could blur the boundaries between public admiration and private access. For parents, it was another reminder that digital fame often hides what really happens behind the screen. Inside prison, Jones effectively disappeared from public life. He was stripped of his platform, reputation, and credibility. His name became synonymous with betrayal, someone who took advantage of trust and destroyed his own career in the process. Even years later, there has been no serious attempt at a comeback, and any mention of his name is tied permanently to his conviction. The Austin Jones case changed how many viewers looked at YouTube culture. It showed that the platform wasn't just a place for entertainment. It was a place where influence could be misused as easily as it could be used to inspire Jones's story isn't one of mystery, or misunderstanding. It's a direct fall from fame to federal prison, driven by choices that betrayed the very audience that built him. In the end, Austin Jones wasn't taken down by critics, competitors, or YouTube algorithms. He was undone by his own actions. What once looked like a rising star in music became a stark example of how easily a career built on trust can collapse overnight. Number 3, Ruby Franke. For years, Ruby Franke was the face of a seemingly perfect American family. Through her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, she built a brand around faith, discipline, and motherhood, presenting her 6 children as polite, responsible, and raised under strict moral guidance. With over 2 million subscribers and millions of monthly views, the Frankes were seen as the model of a wholesome, family-oriented life. But behind the filtered smiles and polished vlogs, something much darker was happening. Something that would end not only her career, but her freedom. At first, nothing about Ruby's channel seemed unusual. Like many family vloggers, she filmed daily routines, shared parenting advice, and talked openly about her religious beliefs. Her followers, many from similar faith backgrounds, admired her for promoting structure and accountability in parenting. But over time, viewers began noticing moments that didn't sit right. In one video, Ruby discussed denying meals as punishment. In another, she took away her child's bedroom privileges for months. Her husband and children appeared uncomfortable on camera, but the family insisted everything was fine. By 2020, criticism was growing. Some viewers accused Ruby of being excessively strict. Others defended her as a tough but caring parent. The truth, as it turned out, was far more severe than anyone imagined. In August 2023, a 12-year-old boy was found in a small Utah neighborhood, thin, bruised, and desperately asking for food and water. He told a neighbor he had escaped from a home nearby, where he and his sister had been held in harsh conditions. Police soon discovered that the house belonged to Jody Hildebrandt, Ruby Franke's close business partner from their self-help program. Connections. When officers entered the property, they found disturbing evidence of ongoing neglect, restraints, open wounds, and signs of prolonged deprivation. Ruby was arrested that same day. As the story broke, the internet that once celebrated her quickly turned against her. The woman who had preached family values was now facing multiple counts of aggravated child abuse. Investigators revealed that her children had been subjected to long periods without food, isolation from family members, and emotional manipulation. In their words, this wasn't discipline. It was cruelty disguised as control. During the legal process, Ruby's defense team initially argued that her actions were guided by her associate, Hildebrandt's, extreme teachings about repentance and purity. But the prosecution presented a different picture. One of 2 adults enforcing harsh punishments under the guise of spiritual correction. Court records included journal entries, video evidence, and medical reports that left little doubt about what had occurred. In December 2023, Ruby Franke pleaded guilty to 4 felony counts of aggravated child abuse. 2 months later, in February 2024, she was sentenced to 4 consecutive prison terms, each ranging from 1 to 15 years, meaning she could spend up to 30 years behind bars depending on parole board decisions. Her partner, Jody Hildebrandt, received an identical sentence. As Ruby stood before the judge, she expressed remorse and claimed she had been influenced by toxic ideologies. But for the public, her apologies could not undo the years of suffering her children endured. The same viewers who once watched her morning routines and family dinners were now watching courtroom footage of a mother in handcuffs. The case sent shockwaves through the YouTube family vlogging world. Parents who had once filmed their children daily began rethinking how much to share. Online advocates, called for new child protection laws for minors featured in monetized content. What had started as a story about one family's private dysfunction became a broader conversation about the dangers of turning childhood into entertainment. Today, Ruby Franke's channel is gone, her brand destroyed, and her family divided. Her children are rebuilding their lives away from cameras, supported by relatives and child protection services. Her husband, who was not charged, has publicly distanced himself from her actions. Ruby Franke once told her audience that discipline built character and that consequences taught gratitude. But in the end, the consequences she imposed on others came back to define her own fate. Her fall from a smiling YouTube mother to a convicted felon wasn't just a scandal. It was a turning point for the entire platform, proving that sometimes the most polished lives online can hide the darkest realities offline. Number 4. Lionmaker. In the early days of YouTube gaming, few creators were as recognizable as Lionmaker. Known for his friendly voice and bright Minecraft worlds, he built a large following of viewers who saw him as a comforting, funny, and endlessly creative figure. His videos felt innocent, colorful adventures, pixelated castles, and collaborations with other popular creators. But as his fame grew, whispers began to circulate online that the man behind the cheerful avatar wasn't who he appeared to be. Marcus Wilton, the person behind Lionmaker Studios, gained over 500,000 subscribers during the peak of Minecraft's popularity. His content centered around community builds, fan interactions, and multiplayer stories that drew in viewers from all over the world. He often called his viewers cubs and presented himself as a big brother figure within the gaming scene. But that closeness to his audience became the very thing that destroyed his career. Around 2015, allegations began surfacing online, claiming that Lionmaker had been engaging in communications with fans that crossed professional boundaries. Screenshots, messages, and leaked conversations began spreading through social media. The claims shocked fans. Many refused to believe them at first, insisting it was all a setup or internet drama. But over time, the evidence became difficult to ignore. Larger creators began distancing themselves from him, and major gaming forums banned his content entirely. In interviews, Wilton denied many of the allegations, saying he had been hacked and that people were impersonating him. But the accusations kept piling up, and authorities in Belgium eventually opened an investigation. Reports at the time suggested he had also faced legal trouble in his personal life. These developments painted a troubling picture, one that directly contradicted the friendly, positive image he had built online. By 2016, his channel was effectively dead. YouTube demonetized and restricted his uploads, and much of the gaming community had cut ties. Though details of his legal outcomes remain inconsistent in public reporting, several European outlets confirmed that he was charged in Belgium after an extended investigation. He later served time related to various offenses, though the exact sentencing details were never publicly released in English-language media. What's certain is that his online presence never recovered. Every attempt to return under new names or rebuild a fan base ended in mass backlash and bans. The Lionmaker case became one of the first major scandals in the YouTube gaming world. It opened a conversation that creators and parents still have today about parasocial relationships, boundaries, and how easily online trust can be manipulated. Many fans who grew up watching him later admitted that his downfall changed the way they viewed gaming channels altogether. What had once been a fun escape suddenly felt less secure. For Marcus Wilton, the silence after 2016 spoke louder than any statement. His once thriving empire of Minecraft content vanished almost overnight. The collaborations stopped, the community moved on, and his name became a cautionary footnote in YouTube history. He went from being a beloved entertainer to one of the most infamous figures in the platform's early gaming scene. What makes this story especially striking is that Lionmaker's videos were supposed to represent innocence, teamwork, imagination, and friendship. But when those values are betrayed, the betrayal feels even deeper. The scandal marked the end of an era for many fans who had grown up in Minecraft servers and chat rooms, believing their favorite creators could do no harm. Today, Marcus Wilton lives far from the spotlight. His name rarely appears online, except in discussions about early YouTube controversies. But his legacy lingers as a reminder that fame without accountability can quickly turn toxic, and that trust, once broken, can never be restored. The fall of Lionmaker wasn't just about a YouTuber losing subscribers. It was about an entire community learning, too late, that the person behind the character mattered more than the world he built on screen. Number 5. Reset. Kanghua Ren, better known online as Reset, was one of Spain's biggest prank YouTubers. His channel thrived on shock humor, public dares, extreme challenges, and stunts designed to go viral fast. At his peak, he had more than 1 million subscribers and a steady stream of attention from fans who found his outrageous humor entertaining. But one prank in 2017 would permanently end his career and turn him from an entertainer into a convicted criminal. Reset's content followed a familiar formula. He'd film himself pulling bizarre stunts in public, laughing at the chaos he created. His goal was simple: to push boundaries for views. But as competition among prank channels intensified, Reset began escalating his ideas, and that escalation would prove disastrous. One winter day in Barcelona, he recorded what he thought would be another shocking viral prank. He approached a homeless man sitting on the street and offered him what appeared to be a pack of Oreo cookies. What the man didn't know was that Reset had scraped out the filling and replaced it with toothpaste, a detail Ren bragged about on camera. When the man ate the cookies, he became sick and vomited repeatedly. Instead of helping, Reset laughed and uploaded the footage online for his followers to enjoy. The internet's reaction was immediate and furious. Commenters accused him of cruelty and humiliation disguised as entertainment. The story spread quickly, appearing on Spanish news outlets and sparking public outrage. Within days, Barcelona police opened an investigation. Reporters later discovered that Reset had also tried to pay the man €20 to stay silent and delete the video. It didn't work. The damage was already done. The case moved swiftly through the courts. Prosecutors argued that Reset's actions weren't a prank at all, but an act of deliberate degradation intended for profit. They emphasized that the victim was vulnerable, a homeless man with limited resources who had been exploited for entertainment. In court, Kanghua Ren tried to defend himself by claiming it was all a joke gone wrong and that he hadn't meant to cause harm. But the judge disagreed. In 2019, he was found guilty of violating the moral integrity of his victim. The court sentenced him to 15 months in prison, a €20,000 compensation fine, and, most significantly, a 5-year ban from YouTube and other social media platforms. Because it was his first offense and the sentence was under 2 years, he didn't serve time behind bars, but the conviction effectively ended his online career. The ruling became one of the first high-profile examples of a YouTuber being legally punished for exploiting someone on camera. It forced creators across Europe to confront a difficult truth. What you call a prank can still be a crime. In Spain, the case became a benchmark for discussions about influencer accountability and the real-world consequences of online content. After the verdict, Reset's channel disappeared. Sponsors cut ties, and public sentiment turned permanently against him. Interviews in Spanish media showed him expressing regret, though many viewers saw it as damage control. He claimed he had learned a hard lesson about respect and ethics. But for most people, the apology came too late. The reset case reshaped how platforms handle harmful prank content. YouTube began enforcing stricter community guidelines, specifically banning pranks that humiliate or endanger people. What once made creators famous, crossing lines for laughs, was now grounds for permanent removal. Today, Kanghua Ren keeps a low profile. The social media ban imposed by the court means he can't legally profit from new online accounts for several years. The homeless man he humiliated received compensation, though no apology could undo the public embarrassment he suffered. In the end, Reset's downfall wasn't caused by a mistake, it was caused by indifference. He saw human suffering as a punchline, and the world finally drew the line. His story stands as a reminder that in the pursuit of views, empathy is not optional, and crossing that boundary can cost you everything. Number 6. DaddyOFive. At first glance, DaddyOFive looked like a typical family YouTube channel. A dad, a mom, and a handful of energetic kids pulling pranks, laughing, and living life on camera. For millions of viewers, it seemed like lighthearted chaos, a relatable, messy family, having fun for the internet. But beneath the laughter and staged mischief, something much more troubling was happening. Something that would turn one of YouTube's biggest family channels into a national scandal. Mike and Heather Martin, the couple behind DaddyOFive, launched their channel in Maryland around 2015. The concept was simple: family pranks. Videos showed them playing jokes on their children, spilling drinks, faking messes, and staging small accidents for laughs. But as their audience grew, the pranks became harsher. Viewers began noticing tears instead of laughter, fear instead of fun. One of their most infamous uploads showed them screaming at their children over a spilled drink that never existed, a setup that left one child in visible distress. For a while, the Martins brushed off criticism as overreaction. They claimed their children were acting and that everyone was in on the joke, but not everyone was convinced. Comment sections filled with anger, and journalists began questioning whether these videos crossed the line from comedy into cruelty. In 2017, the breaking point came when another YouTuber compiled footage from DaddyOFive and sent it to Child Protective Services. The clips painted a disturbing pattern of emotional manipulation and humiliation used as entertainment. The public outrage was immediate. What had once been seen as family fun was now viewed as exploitation. Major news outlets picked up the story, and police in Maryland began investigating. The Martins initially defended themselves in a video titled "Family Destroyed Over YouTube," insisting they were good parents and that the outrage was exaggerated. But within weeks, investigators and social workers intervened. Authorities found that 2 of the children, Cody and Emma, had been particularly targeted in the videos, pranked, screamed at, and even physically roughed up for reactions. The courts ruled that these kids were in danger and transferred custody to their biological mother. It was a turning point that forced YouTube and viewers alike to confront a disturbing question. When family content becomes profitable, where is the line between parenting and performance? In September 2017, Mike and Heather Martin both pleaded guilty to 2 counts of child neglect. Instead of jail time, they received 5 years of supervised probation, along with mandatory counseling and restrictions on filming their children. Their DaddyOFive channel was permanently deleted, and YouTube later banned their follow-up channels, FamilyOFive and MommyOFive. After attempts to restart under new names, the fallout was massive. The Martins lost their platform, their income, and their reputation overnight. What had once brought them fame, using their children for content, became the very reason they were erased from the platform. Critics argued that YouTube had failed to act sooner, pointing out that many of their most disturbing videos had been monetized for months before removal. In the aftermath, discussions about child exploitation on YouTube intensified. Lawmakers, journalists, and advocates began calling for stricter protections for minors featured in monetized videos. Some proposed Coogan laws for online platforms, regulations that would ensure children receive a share of earnings and are shielded from harmful filming practices. The DaddyOFive case became Exhibit A in that debate. Years later, the Martins live largely offline. Their names occasionally resurface when new creators cross ethical lines involving children, serving as a warning that viral success can easily turn toxic when real emotions are treated as content. For the children involved, the damage ran deeper than any prank. It was about trust broken in front of millions. In the end, DaddyOFive was more than just a YouTube controversy. It was a mirror held up to the internet itself. It showed how far audiences were willing to go for real reactions, and how quickly empathy could disappear when the camera was rolling. What began as a family chasing clicks ended with a courtroom, a broken home, and a lasting reminder. Not every moment should be filmed, and not every laugh is worth the cost. Number 7. Sam Pepper. In the mid-2000s, Sam Pepper was one of YouTube's biggest prank creators. Young, charismatic, and constantly pushing boundaries. A former Big Brother UK contestant, he carried that same unpredictable energy into his channel. His pranks were bold, sometimes outrageous, and often went viral. But as his ideas became more extreme, so did the backlash. What began as playful mischief eventually spiraled into one of the most infamous reputational collapses in YouTube history. Sam built his fame on shock value. He'd approach strangers, pull stunts that made people uncomfortable, and laugh his way through the chaos. For a while, that formula worked. His subscriber count skyrocketed past 2 million. Brands collaborated with him, and his face became a fixture in YouTube's prank video culture. But in 2014, he uploaded a video that crossed a line even his fans couldn't defend. In the clip, he walked through public spaces, filming interactions with strangers that many viewers found deeply uncomfortable. Within hours, the outrage was overwhelming. Viewers accused him of crossing boundaries for entertainment. YouTube quickly demonetized the video, and it was removed after millions of views. The damage, however, was already done. Soon, multiple people came forward online, claiming they'd experienced concerning behavior from Pepper, beyond what appeared in his videos. Some said they'd met him at events or gatherings. The accusations spread fast across social media and news sites. Sam denied wrongdoing and called many of the claims false stories. But the momentum of public opinion was unstoppable. Trying to defuse the backlash, Pepper later uploaded another video claiming his earlier pranks were social experiments meant to highlight public reactions. But few believed him. In 2015, another stunt reignited the controversy. An extreme prank where he staged a scenario that left a friend believing something terrible was happening. The distressed reactions weren't entertaining. They were disturbing. That upload finally pushed the platform, sponsors, and event organizers to cut ties. He was banned from VidCon, dropped by multiple partners, and publicly denounced by fellow creators who once collaborated with him. For a brief time, Sam disappeared from the internet. When he returned months later, his tone had changed. The pranks were gone, replaced with apology videos and reflections on cancel culture. He admitted he'd gone too far and tried to frame the backlash as a learning experience. But the audience had already moved on. His subscriber base shrank, and every attempt to rebrand was overshadowed by his past. Years later, he transitioned into other online ventures, live streaming, commentary, and later short-form videos. But his name remained tied to controversy. He occasionally acknowledged that his own chase for virality blinded him to empathy, saying he prioritized shock over substance. Even so, the internet never truly forgave him. The Sam Pepper saga became a turning point in YouTube culture. It showed that anything for views wasn't sustainable, that creators couldn't treat human boundaries as content without consequences. After his controversies, YouTube began tightening rules around pranks and consent in filmed interactions. What had once been considered edgy entertainment now risked immediate removal. Today, Pepper maintains a quiet presence online, far removed from the chaotic energy that once defined him. His story stands as a reminder that shock-based fame burns fast. And when the laughter stops, all that's left is the reputation you've built behind the camera. Sam Pepper's downfall wasn't a single mistake. It was a chain reaction of choices that showed how easily success can turn into infamy. He became a case study in what happens when pushing limits becomes the entire brand, until there are no limits left to cross. Number 8. Zachary Latham. Zachary Latham wasn't a typical influencer. He was a young man who wanted attention, and he found it by filming confrontation. His videos, posted under the name TikTok Life 1000, often showed him arguing with neighbors, boasting about drama, and turning everyday conflict into online content. But what began as petty arguments for views ended in real violence. And one of the most shocking true stories ever linked to social media fame. Latham lived in Vineland, New Jersey, in a quiet residential neighborhood with his wife. Across the street lived the Durham family, longtime residents, well-known, and by most accounts, peaceful people. But tension began after Zachary started driving recklessly down their street, speeding past children and ignoring complaints. When the Durhams confronted him, he recorded the argument and uploaded it, adding mocking captions and hashtags to make it seem like entertainment. The more they argued, the more views he got. Latham leaned into the conflict, framing the family as his crazy neighbors. He even printed shirts with slogans referencing their disputes. As the situation escalated, the Durhams reported the harassment to local police, saying they feared something bad was going to happen. Unfortunately, they were right. On May 4th, 2020, everything came to a breaking point. After another argument outside his house, Latham and the Durhams got into a violent confrontation. Accounts of what happened next differ, but what's undisputed is the outcome. William Timmy, Durham Sr., the father, was fatally wounded during the altercation. The incident was captured on Latham's own security cameras, as well as cell phones and nearby doorbell footage. Latham claimed self-defense, saying the Durhams had come to his property and attacked him first. Prosecutors, on the other hand, argued that Latham had intentionally provoked the situation for the sake of filming content, that he wanted a reaction dramatic enough to go viral. They pointed to his pattern of posting the Durhams online and mocking them as proof that this wasn't a random fight, but a confrontation he had cultivated for views. The case made national headlines. It wasn't just about a killing. It was about how social media can distort reality and reward dangerous behavior. The trial, delayed multiple times due to the pandemic, finally concluded in 2023. After weeks of testimony, the jury ultimately acquitted Zachary Latham, finding him not guilty of manslaughter and related charges. The verdict divided the public. Some believed he had defended himself, while others saw it as a miscarriage of justice fueled by manipulation and spectacle. Even with his acquittal, Latham's reputation never recovered. The videos he had once proudly uploaded were deleted, and the internet turned on him completely. Comment sections across platforms condemned his actions, calling him the embodiment of how far people would go for online fame. He became a symbol of the darker side of influencer culture, where the line between performance and reality disappears, and tragedy becomes content. After the trial, the Durham family publicly expressed heartbreak, saying that no verdict could change what happened. For them, their husband and father was gone, and the person responsible had built an audience by mocking their pain. The case sparked legal debates about whether platforms should bear responsibility when creators document dangerous situations for profit. Zachary Latham faded from public view soon after, his social media accounts inactive. But his story continues to circulate online, analyzed in documentaries and true crime discussions as one of the most disturbing examples of content gone wrong. He didn't lose his freedom in court, but he lost everything else: his reputation, his audience, and the illusion that attention equals success. What started as a petty online feud ended as a lesson in how quickly the chase for virality can turn fatal. In the end, Zachary Latham became a cautionary name, proof that in the social media age, the pursuit of fame can become more dangerous than anyone realizes, until it's far too late. Number 10. Randy Stair. In the early 2000s, Randy Stair was just another quiet voice on the internet. A shy, creative young man who found comfort in animation, music, and online communities. Under the name Andrew Blaze, he built a small but loyal following through his YouTube channel, where he posted dark, surreal, animated videos on the surface. His content looked like an artistic outlet, a way for a lonely creator to express himself. But behind those eerie cartoons, something much more disturbing was growing. Randy lived in Pennsylvania and worked nights stocking shelves at a Weiss Market supermarket. To coworkers, he was quiet and introverted, but polite. No one imagined that the quiet kid making animations online was secretly writing a manifesto about ending lives. Over time, his videos became darker, his scripts more violent, and his art more detached from reality. He began blending fantasy with real life, creating a character, Andrew Blaze, that he saw as his true identity. Through that persona, he developed an obsession with death, violence, and the idea of leaving a legacy through destruction. Between 2016 and 2017, his online activity took a chilling turn. He began recording journals and video diaries describing his plans for what he called a final project. He drew comparisons between himself and fictional villains, framing what he intended to do as a twisted act of self-expression. He uploaded lengthy monologues about his disconnection from humanity and his belief that he didn't belong in the world. His small online audience didn't realize these were genuine warnings of what was to come. In June 2017, at the age of 24, Randy arrived at his workplace in Eaton Township for an overnight shift. He had brought with him several shotguns he had illegally modified. When the store closed, he blocked the exits and carried out a calculated act of violence, killing 3 co-workers before turning the weapon on himself. It was one of the most shocking crimes in Pennsylvania that year, not just because of the act itself, but because of the level of planning and online documentation leading up to it. When police entered the building, they found not only the scene of the attack, but also notebooks, recordings, and drives full of files that detailed everything in advance. Investigators later discovered dozens of videos and journals he had uploaded to YouTube and other platforms in the hours before the incident, explaining his motives and beliefs. They painted a picture of someone who had fully detached from reality, a man who viewed his actions as part of a fantasy narrative he had created online. News outlets and criminologists later studied Randy's digital footprint as a disturbing case study of how internet isolation can feed delusion. He had no known history of violence, no criminal record, and no serious mental health intervention before the tragedy. Yet years of self-reinforcing ideas online pushed him toward an irreversible act. His case became an example used by law enforcement to understand how warning signs can hide in plain sight on social media. The aftermath left families and communities devastated. 3 innocent people lost their lives, and countless others were scarred by what they witnessed that night. YouTube quickly removed all of Randy's channels and content. Researchers who reviewed the materials before deletion confirmed that his writings and videos reflected deep psychological collapse and obsession rather than any coherent ideology. What made Randy Stair's story so haunting wasn't just the act itself. It was how ordinary his life appeared up until that point. A quiet job, an anonymous YouTube channel, and an online persona that no one realized was slipping into darkness. It forced the public to confront how easily digital anonymity can hide real danger, and how art, when detached from empathy, can turn into obsession. There was no trial, no sentencing, and no closure. Only unanswered questions and the lingering reminder of how warning signs can go unnoticed until it's too late. Randy Stair's story stands as one of the darkest examples of a creator who turned his own platform into a countdown. In the end, his online world consumed him completely. What began as escapism became isolation, and what started as imagination turned into tragedy. His downfall wasn't about fame or money. It was about a mind lost in the echo chamber of its own creation.